everybody, this is Tim Wolf, and today's topic is an article that was in the Washington Post, and the date is November 30th of last year, 2018, and it's regarding classical music. The music industry sells classical as soothing background music, robbing a great art of its power. Classical music. It has a certain connotations to it. It's only for wealthy people, and it's only for old people. And now this article is letting us know how it's being marketed, a way to go to sleep or a way to relax. It's almost, in fact, one of the elevator music, that one of the illustrations accompanying the article has an entire orchestra crammed into an elevator. So classical music and jazz, two art forms that are really not too much in popular favor right now, are in a similar path, I would say. And I'm not that well informed. I had a subscription to the New York Philharmonic when I lived in New York City, and I know just a bit, not very much, about classical pieces. I mean, recognize the names of the composers. I'm probably the average consumer of classical. And I do know that classical music is on financial tough times. A lot of orchestras have struggled with finances, and a lot of orchestras have cut members, because I think a full orchestra is 110 roughly members, and a lot of orchestras are cutting and going to a smaller number of full-time members, and then when they do a big piece that requires more members to pull it off, they have ad hoc contractors come in for the run, and so they're compensating. And one of the problems that is covered in the article, it said that, see if I can find it because I read it, I didn't highlight it, but according to a 2015 National Endowment for the Arts report, a decade ago, which should have been 2017, 45 to 64-year-olds had the highest rate of attendance at classical music performances. By 2012, it was 65 to 74-year-olds. So basically, the fans of classical music are dying off. They're getting older and eventually dying, because the average life expectancy in the U.S. is in the 70s. So if that's where your biggest cohort is, you're losing people every year. And so it has a reputation issue that it's intellectual, it is hard to access, hard to understand, it is a little snobby, and now being marketed as a way to fall asleep. I mean, not something that is going to make you be really excited about going to see a concert, right? So classical has some issues, and same as jazz. And I remember when I started taking saxophone lessons, and jazz maybe we can talk about another time, but I put them in the same category because saxophone, it was real eye-opening for me. I learned a lot from my professor, Dr. Spaeth, and I only did it for a year and a half, then I dropped it because I was busy with other things. But I've dug up my sax a few times, and I would love to find the time to start practicing the sax every day again and get my chops up, because I just love the sax, and I still have all of my sax. I have 4 saxes, an alto, 2 tenors, and a baritone. And I did do some recordings where I played all the different parts. Anyway, he described to me that classical at least has a function, and jazz has a function as being used as a teaching tool. It's a great method for teaching, to learn an instrument. And everyone who goes through in college and learns these instruments will learn how to play these classical pieces or these jazz pieces. And that is a foundation of teaching, education. So there's that. So all people who have music degrees learn how to. So there's a bit of a built-in fan base, but if that's the only fan base, that ain't gonna hack it. So I don't know. I mean, it's also said that the biggest demand for classical type music is from movie scores, and that's a lot of young folks. And you could get, you're trying to get people to go to see symphonies play, have them play scores from popular movies. So it's a marketing thing, it's a demand thing. I mean, definitely the classical is on the ropes, but so are other art forms. Blues. I mean, blues amongst African Americans was the thing. If you were a hot blues artist, you were the biggest thing going in the African American community. Now blues is since Stevie Ray Vaughan popularized it, it has really fallen on poor times, or it's not a very popular art form. Jazz as well. Jazz CDs continue sales, of course, all CD sales, but jazz. Musical forms go in and out of fashion, and rock is now on the ebb in a way. Hip hop has taken over for rock, and rock isn't on the charts comparatively to where it was. There's no big rock acts like there were. The only rock acts are the more vintage ones, like U2, or a little longer, Red Hot Chili Peppers. The only new, like Imagine Dragons is a fairly new one that's was at the top of the charts, but they're few and far between, unlike it was. So everything is a wave. Now they're saying that hip hop is starting to fade a bit, and maybe rock and guitar-based bands are coming back a little bit. So everything is a cycle, and classical had its day in the sun for a number of centuries. Who's to say it won't again in some form? I like classical. I would not want to have the job of being in charge of managing a local symphony that was struggling to stay afloat. That's a real challenge. It's going to take some real change in the marketing or approach to keep that going. So anyway, that's all I have for today. We'll see you next time.